This is my shout out list for 2012 for all the people I really fuck with or, you know what I'm saying, am associated with. So, shout out to my best friend Brittany. Shout out to my best friend Danielle. Shout out to my best friend Dee Dee. Shout out to my best friend Jelly. Shout out to my best friend Dacus. Shout out to my best friend Sean. Shout out to my ace Mookie. Shout out to my ace London. Shout out to my fave Dante because that's my favorite person in the world. Shout out to my brother CJ. Shout out to my brother Ricardo. Shout out to my twin Curlew. Shout out to my nephew Marlon. Shout out to my nigga Rumar. Shout out to my nigga Shakoy. Shout out to my nigga Devin Brownlee. Follow him on Twitter. Shout out to my nigga Will the General. Follow him on Twitter. Shout out to my boo boo Vontae. Shout out to my nigga Woo. Shout out to my nigga Eric Tyson from Harvard. Shout out to everybody from the hood. Shout out to Kenyatta. Shout out to Tamira. Shout out to Darren. Shout out to Pootie. Shout out to Jalen. Shout out to Bridget. Shout out to Dee. Shout out to Steph. Shout out to Mary. Shout out to Paige. Shout out to Steve, which is one of the realest niggas in it, and I love him to death. Shout out to Ronald. Shout out to Cliff. Shout out to Jerron. Shout out to Crystal. Shout out to Young Dave. Shout out to Ruth, aka Pebbles, my daughter. Shout out to Arius, my little brother, and shout out to my sister Elise. Shout out to my other sisters. Shout out to my sister Amber. Shout out to my sister Angelique. Shout out to my sister Isha. Shout out to my sister Milan. Shout out to my real sisters, Boona, Brianna, Larissa, Francine, Dominique. Shout out to my brother Frankie D. Shout out to my mother Miara. I love her to death. Follow her or add her on Facebook. Mimi the sweetheart. She's beautiful. Shout out to my little cousins Jamila, Landis, Raven, Kenzie. Shout out to my big cousin Jazz because she always got my back. Shout out to my cousin Lila because that's my heart. That's my boom coon and I love her to death. Shout out to my cousin Sierra. Shout out to my cousin Chastity. Shout out to my favorite cousin Neil. Shout out to my wife Jordan, which is my best friend's girlfriend, but she real. She know how to hold a nigga down and she doing a good job with my best friend. So for that, I appreciate her. Shout out to my tap man Samson. Samson Smiley. Add him on Facebook. Check his tap game out. My nigga is cold. Shout out to Talk here, of course. Shout out to my nigga Talk for doing big things, making big moves. Shout out to Angelo. Shout out to Twan. Shout out to Boobers. Y'all whole little fam. I see y'all. Shout out to David, which has been my friend since we were 6 years old and will always remain that way. So shout out to Dave Love. Follow him on Twitter. Shout out to everybody that's locked down doing hard time. Shout out to B Coop. Shout out to Rio. Shout out to my nigga Pork, which will be home in July. Free my brother. Free my brother Nooch, who should be home anytime. So free Noochie. Free Cece. The hood miss you. Free BJ. Free my uptown nigga BJ. I miss you, my nigga. Free. Shout out to everybody that like my status on Facebook about my shout outs. So I'm gonna get to that list now. So free. Why do I keep saying free? Shout out to my nigga Bubbles, Jay Montana, love you boo. Shout out to Jasmine Brown. Shout out to Asia Sims. Shout out to Kim Carlisle. Shout out to Zodiac Diva President Killer Curse KT. Shout out to you boo, I see you. Shout out to India Wadley. Shout out to Tanasia Hall that I've known since I was 10. Love you boo. Yeah, so shout out to everybody just basically out here doing they want to, everybody getting money. Shout out to my brother Tim, because he always got good advice for me and he always putting me in the right direction. Shout out to Willie Brown, because that nigga doing big things over there in Akron and I see you, boo. Shout out to Charnel Jackson. Can't forget her, love you, boo. Yeah, shout out to everybody that's really doing really big things. Like, it's hard out here and I don't really like messing with people that don't got no drive nor no type of ambition. So if I'm shouting you out, it's worth it. So shout out to y'all. Shout out to Malcolm from Kinsman. Shout out to Malcolm from my hood. Shout out to just everybody doing real things. You know what I'm saying? So once again, if I fuck with you, you got a shout out. Peace.